Yes. So coming to React components. So as was said previous, so components are heart of any framework, not only React. In Angular also we are having the components concept, but it is a different method, different naming convention. That's it only. So in JavaScript, so we are call it as a function. In other languages, we are call it as a module or something others. Okay, in Angular mostly, so we can call it as a module. Coming to React, so we can call it as a component. Okay, so but finally, so components are independent and reusable small piece of code. So basically, why we are using the functions, modules, and components, all those things. So whenever it is required, so we can use that piece of code. So no need to write every time. For suppose I want a one input box. So it's a small, okay, that's fine. So we can create it. But so coming to first, suppose I want to, as discussed in JavaScript, I want one table. I want to display a table. So for that purpose, I already written somewhere. So why I need to write in this place? Okay, why don't you use same piece of code again? Okay, so for that purpose, they are building the components, modules, or functions. Whenever we require that piece of code, so we can directly call that piece of code, then we can execute. Okay, it's a reusable. It's a reusable. Okay, so for that purpose only we can use these components, either a functions, either modules, other thing. Okay, so coming to this one, components are independent and reusable small piece of code. Okay, not a small piece of code, any code. Okay, so any code. So if you want to reuse, then we can build as a component. Then we can build as a functions in JavaScript. Okay, so they serve the same purpose as JavaScript function, but work in isolation and returns HTML and returns HTML. Okay, so in React components, we are in React components, so come up with two type of components. So one is functional component and another one is class component. One is functional component and another one is class component and another one is function components. Okay, so what is difference between these two, function component and class component? So whenever we have to use the class component, in the class component as discussed yesterday, we have to create a constructor and again we have to create a super class. So then we have to pass the parameters. So this type of confusion is having in functions. Basically JavaScript supports the functions concept only. Okay, so after releasing ESX, so they are introduced to the class concept. Okay, but mostly so in future, in future definitely they can remove the class components from the React.js because of we are having some confusion using class components. We are having some confusion using class components. Okay, so the next one is we are having two type of components. So one is class component and another one is function component. So then class component, coming to class component, so a class component must be include and the extent of a React component. Okay, so where we are used yesterday we discussed about the extents. What is that extents? Extents is a inheritance concept. So if you want to reuse or if you want to import the methods or properties from the React component, React package, so then we have to use the inheritance concept when we are using the class components. Okay, so this is a simple example how we can create a class component. Okay, so then now we can go to our React.js. Yes, here is the terminal. So then npm start, right? Or otherwise, I can create a another component. I can create another app cd that we are having. So we are going to the desktop. Desktop here we are having React. So then here CMD. Okay, CMD inside of this one. So while creating a new app, so what is the command? React. What is the command for the creating a new app? npx npx for creating a new app. Npx. So create hyphen app hyphen react. So your app name. Your app name. Okay. So my app we already created. So REST React app I am creating. Okay. So in that all small piece of code we are written, right? Small piece of apps we are written, right? So then, so that's why I'm creating new app. And create, sorry, cmd. So then npx create hyphen react hyphen app. Okay, react app. So app is creating. So default packages are installing. So compared to class component, functional components are very easy. Compared to class components, functional components are very easy to create the React applications without avoiding any confusion. Without avoiding, without avoiding confusion. Yes, completed. App installation is completed. Now we have to go to that folder, cd react app. Okay, so from here we can go. Now we can close this terminal. So then new folder, so then react app. Now we are into that project. So then open terminal, new terminal. So then npm start. App is opening. So then so we can create a first class component. We can discuss just basic component, how we can create a basic component in class and how we can create a component in function. Okay, so then if you can see it here, there is so class component. A class component must include the extends or react component. Okay, so this statement creates an inheritance to react component and gives your component access to the react component functions. The component also requires a render method. So whenever you are creating any component, not only so class component or react component, we require a render method. This method returns the html. Okay, this method or render method returns the DOM elements to the browser. Okay, so then we can write a simple component where it is, here it is. So then we can go to the, where is this one, public src. So then in the index.js, now we are loading, so we don't require this import, and this app also not required, and this index.css also not required. So whenever you are creating a new application, so then these are the default. By default it is coming one app or a sample app. Okay, so then remove everything. So then save, nothing is displayed. So then now I'm calling the class component. I'm creating the class component here, class. Okay, so so whenever you are creating any class or any functional component, you must start with the capital letter. Okay, so my component my component. So then whenever we are creating the class component, we have to use the inheritance of react default component, extends, then react dot component. we have to we have to we have to use the inheritance concept concept, so to get the default react component properties or methods. Okay, so that's why we are using the extends here, inheritance concept we are using here. So yes, class is created like this. So then after that, so suppose just a simple print statement, render. So whenever we are creating anything, we have to use the render. Whenever we are rendering any html things. Okay, render method is helpful for to displaying the htmls or DOM methods. It is returning the html to the browser. Okay, so then return. So then h1 h1 sample or welcome to a React class component. Welcome to a React class component. Alright. So now class components is completed. So then how we can execute this one? How we can execute this one? Okay. Here class is completed. Alright. So the next one. So how we can create? How we can routing to the React node, and how we can so display this one. So then if you can just give me a second. So first one we have to create it. So constant my node equal to react dom dot create root. So then document dot get element by id. So then inside of this one we have to get that node, right? So what is the node here? So where we are have providing the nodes. So in the public index.html we can place all the nodes. So then div id equal to, we cannot give the class names, we have to give only id. Okay, right? So then id, so then my class here. So here I'm copying this my class and paste it here. So then, right, created a node, then we have to render it, right? So then my node dot render, what is our component name? My component is the name of our class component. Okay, so now you can see. So what happened? Rest terminal in npm start, right? So where it is, we already running. Yes, it is already running. We already displayed here. Where it is? Here it is. Welcome to React class component. So inside you can write anything. In this inside, so you can write anything. For suppose if you want to write a multiple line, so then we have to use this parenthesis. So as usual, so whatever features we are discussed previous, so then same thing we can use it or written inside of this one. So welcome to that, and inside of this return statement, so yes, right, same output we are getting. So for suppose if you want to include any paragraphs, paragraph sample and text, so why it is showing error? Because of we have to, whenever we are including more than one DOM element, we have to include the one root element, right? So that is this, here it is a root element. Then now successfully execute. Okay, clear. So then, so if you want to write any JavaScript related thing, so we can write inside of constructor or some. Okay, so this is a sample component, so we can go through completely, we can go through whenever we are discussing the class components. We can discuss after discussing the functional component also. This is a class component, right? So the next one, functional component. So how we can write the functional component? So we are having two type of components. One is class component and another one is a functional component. So whenever we are writing a class component, we have to use the inheritance. So in the inheritance, we have to extend the React default component, React dot component. Okay, so coming to functional component, a function component also returns HTML and behave much the same way as class component, but functional components can be written using much less code or easier to understand. Okay, why we are using 90% of the people can use only functional components. 90% of the people they are using functional components only. Why? Because it is a very easy and it will take lesser code compared to the class components. Okay, so then now we can see the one function component. So here it is the React component, right? So then here I'm writing another function component function. Okay, so my function. Okay, no need to write any extents or something. Okay, no need to write anything. So just my function inside this one. So as usual we have to use the render concept. Same thing how we can write it here. Same thing how we can write it here. Welcome to the React functional component. Okay, so then so how we can happen that we are getting render, and this is function. Class is closed, then function render and return. Where we have no errors. Function my function, no error, no error, right? So then we have to use the render. Why for render we are getting error? Why we are getting the render? Continue with render. So then return. Then I think it's not required. Return. So then we can place same thing. Welcome to React functional component. Okay, so then how we can print same thing. So my node we cannot use two times my function node. Okay, so my function node dot render. Then what is our component name? My function, right? Here my function is a component. So but here we are displaying the output in same node. So we have to create another node for functional component. So then div id equal to my function. Okay, so then this is the node. Save it, and we have to replace this. Okay, now if you can see, welcome to a React class component and welcome to a React functional component. Okay, so these are the functional component and React component. Okay, so now we are returning. So for suppose we are having thousands of components, thousands of class components, thousands of functional components. Okay, so then we cannot write all these functions inside of this one, right? We cannot write. So for that time, so what is the way? Okay, so in this function component, a rendering component. So we discussed it, right? So now your React application has a component called test. So which returns the H2 element. To use this component in your application, use similar syntax as normal HTML test. Okay, so this is for rendering a component. This is for rendering a component. So previously what we are doing, we are creating the just variable like that, right? So constant my com equal to, so then here we are created h2 welcome to normal component in a React. Just just we are calling directly this one to here, right? Constant my root equal to, so then react dom dot create root, so then document dot get element by id, document dot get element by id. So then we are already having the default root, so then we can use that one. So then my root dot render, so then how we can call that one? So just plain, so what is our this one, my component, just we are using previous like this, right? So when it comes to the, when you call the components, okay, either functional component or class component, we have to use like this is a HTML. So use less than or less than and greater than, in between we have to write the component name, right? So these three ways we can create the components: functional component and class component, and this is a normal variable type component. Okay, so then coming to next one, so React props. React props. Props means properties. Props means properties. So how we can call the properties? So whenever we are having the any functional components or class components, we can call the properties, right? So components can be passed as a props, which stands for the properties. Props are like functional argument as you send them into a component as attributes. Component as attributes. How we can send the properties? How we can send the properties? So for suppose here, so I want to call props. Sorry, props. Okay. So how we can pass these props? How we can pass these props? For suppose here, so welcome to React functional components. So here I want to pass that props as a argument. I want to pass that one as a dynamic. How we can call props dot props dot, so we have to call that way props dot, so then course. Okay, so I want to pass that course dynamically. So then here this is a functional component. So then now I am going to the function. So then here course equal to, so within the quotations we have to give the React JS. Okay, so this way we have to provide the properties, that means arguments. Okay, now you can see here it is React.js functional component. This way we can pass the arguments in the functions. Whenever we are discussing the JavaScript, so we discuss the functions and function arguments, right? So in the same way we can pass the function arguments like this. So in normal JavaScript, how we can call it? How we can call in normal JavaScript? So we are calling the function and function name, right? So function name, so then inside this one, So we are writing the code. For suppose if you want to pass any argument, so value 1. Okay. So then how we can call this function whenever we are calling f function name, then we have to pass the parameter, right? We have to pass the that properties and our argument, right? So then that value is suppose react. So this way we have to pass the arguments. This way we have to pass the arguments, right? So in the same way, whenever we are calling the component, whenever we are calling the functional component, we are passing the argument course equal to react.js. We are passing the course equal to react.js. For suppose, so if you are passing the two parameters, so then so here course one, so then course two course 2 equal to so then angular js. So as usual, how we can pass the value 1 and value 2, so this way. So then here, so in normal javascript we can call like this, we can do like this. So coming to a react.js, so we are passing this way. So then this course 1 and course 2, welcome to our React props course 1, then comma course 2, comma, then course 2. Okay, now you can see it here. Here it is, React.js and AngularJS. Okay, so this is the way we can create the functional components and class components. So this way we can pass the arguments to the functional components. This way we can pass the arguments to the functional component. So the next one, so components inside components, how we can call. So components inside component, how we can call it. So we can call it. Here it is. For suppose here I have two components. Okay, so then so in the first component I just write the welcome to react.js, welcome to, so just I am